coming up tonight on VCU InSight.
I'm Talia Fagar, and I'll show you how this road is dividing car drivers and bike riders.
I'm Will Thomas, and I'll tell you when you can expect to see a new Planned Parenthood on the East End.
I'm Tanisha Brothers Sutton, and after nearly 2 years of construction, Monroe Park is finally open. I'll show you the changes. All of this and more.
VCU InSight starts right now.
From the Richard T. Robertson School of Media and Culture at Virginia Commonwealth University, named Best Student Newscast in the Mid-Atlantic, this is VCU InSight.
Good evening and welcome to VCU InSight. I'm Precious Banks.
And I'm Ty Wong. Thanks for joining us. Our lead story tonight, Brook Road is scheduled to get a protected bike lane next year.
But as InSight's Talia Fagart reports, a proposed ordinance is a major speed bump for the plan.
A 30-pound bicycle versus a 2-ton car going 45 miles an hour down this road is terrifying.
Most days, Balin Forcier rides his bike to work. It's easy to see why he's a fan of Richmond's plan for 135 miles of new bike lanes throughout the city.
The roads are public space. And they're one of the last remaining percentages of public space.
But two city leaders want this stretch of road, the nearly 4 miles from Charity Street to Azalea, excluded from the plan. Louise Lockett from Bike Walk RVA says Brook Road is important for connecting the north side to downtown.
About 20% of Richmond households don't own a car. And we want to make sure that people have safe options, whether it's walking to the bus stop, whether it's just walking a distance, or having to bike a distance.
Those fighting the bike lanes say that the change would have a major impact on the traffic on Brook Road, a busy street even on a weekend afternoon.
Council members Kim Gray and Chris Hilbert filed an ordinance that would stop Brook Road from being converted from 2 lanes for traffic to 1 lane for traffic, 1 lane for parking, and 1 narrow lane for biking.
So I thought the language was strong. I thought it was short-sighted because Brook Road is very scary as a cyclist.
The council members have held public meetings about stopping the bike lanes, and after community input, are still moving forward with the proposal. The city council will take up the issue on November 13th. For VCU InSight, I'm Talia Fagart.
If the ordinance does not pass, construction is scheduled to begin on the Brook Road bike lanes next year. Another project in the pipeline for Brook Road, a $32 million apartment project, has initial approval from the city. The Richmond Planning Commission approved plans for the Brook Road apartments. This project consists of 2 4-story buildings with more than 200 units, a pool, and a courtyard. These apartments will be across the street from Virginia Union University and next to the existing Spectrum apartment.
A months-long battle between an electric scooter company and a city continues. These electric scooters from a company called Bird showed up in August. Richmond has repeatedly impounded the scooter, saying they want the company to go through an official permit process. Mayor LeVar Stoney has now drafted a proposal for a scooter permit system. According to Style Weekly, it would require companies like Bird to pay an application fee plus an annual permit fee of $40,000. The public will have a chance to weigh in the scooter permit system before the city council votes on it.
Starting next summer, Richmonders will have access to a second Planned Parenthood. InSight's Will Thomas found out more about these plans. Good evening, Will.
Good evening, Precious. Right now, the only Planned Parenthood in the area is in Carytown. The second location will make it much more accessible for patients living on the East End.
Students recently gathered on VCU's campus to stand with Planned Parenthood. Late last month, they announced they will be opening a second facility. Milena Llanos is the head of Planned Parenthood Generation Action. Llanos believes the opening of the new Planned Parenthood gives more access to residents.
It'll be beneficial because there obviously is like a large community of color there, so it'll be easier for them to be able to access the same services that someone with a car might be able to, or someone who lives closer to the West End might be able to.
The nonprofit aims to open a second facility, which would be the 6th total in the state, in the East End by next summer. The plan comes after the Virginia General Assembly expanded Medicaid coverage to thousands earlier this year. Alexis Rogers is the communications director for Planned Parenthood, and she says they're ready for Medicaid expansion's effects.
It means that thousands of Virginians here in the Richmond area now have access to health insurance, and we expect that a lot of new people will be seeking access to health care, and that they'll have a home here at Planned Parenthood.
Rogers says many people commuting contributed to Planned Parenthood's decision on their new location.
Planned Parenthood says about 1/3 of its current patients are commuting from here on the East End. It's about an hour-long drive to their current location.
Designs for the new facility have not yet been submitted to the city, but Planned Parenthood will submit them by the end of 2018. For VCU InSight, I'm Will Thomas.
The Planned Parenthood investment is meant to work alongside the city's plan to develop the Creighton Court public housing community.
Will Thomas reporting from our Richmond newsroom. Thanks, Will.
A VCU health system has agreed to pay nearly $4 million in settlement over billing mistakes. When auditing its patient files, VCU discovered that federal healthcare payers had been overbilled for cancer-related services. VCU disclosed the overbilling to the U.S. Attorney's Office and assisted in the investigation. The billing mistakes were made from 2009 to 2014, involved patients who had Medicare, TRICARE, or the Federal Employees Health Benefits Plan.
After $6 million and nearly 2 years of construction, Monroe Park is finally open. InSight's Tanisha Brother Sutton shows us the changes.
Monroe Park is back. One of Richmond's oldest parks is revamped after 22 months of construction.
I honestly think it looks great. It's about time.
Sarah Daniel is a senior at VCU. She lives across from the park and says she's happy to finally be able to walk through it rather than around it.
Chairs are cool. There's ping pong tables, which are awesome. A lot of bike racks. I'm excited to see the coffee shop that's going to be opening behind me, which will be amazing, I think.
The changes to the park are easy to spot. New grass and trees, tables and chairs, a restored fountain, a piano, and a coffee shop. The question now is whether one major feature of the park will stay the same.
Before the park closed for renovations, this spot was a place where the homeless could come to receive basic services.
Michael Rogers is a part of Homeward.
What had been the routine is that often on the weekends there were groups there providing meals.
It's a planning and coordinating organization for homeless services.
And when Monroe Park closed, that routine was disrupted.
Now that the park has returned, he says Homeward will return to the park as well.
We, for the past couple of years, haven't sent anyone to Monroe Park because it's been closed, so we probably will send people there.
The Monroe Park Conservancy says civic and charitable groups will be able to serve food in designated areas on Saturdays and Sundays. For VCU InSight, I'm Tanisha Brother Sutton.
The park's new pavilion is still under construction, while all other parts of Monroe Park are open sunrise to sunset.
There are only a few days left to register to vote in the upcoming election. Those looking to vote will have until Monday, October 15th to put in their voter application. Richmond got about 1,500 new registered voters in September. You can register online, by person, or mail at places like local library or the DMV. The deadline to request an absentee ballot to be mailed to you is Tuesday, October 30th. And after you register to vote, Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney wants to make it easier to get to the polls. The mayor has proposed making the GRTC bus rides free for upcoming midterm elections. The city council is considering the request. It will cost the city about $24,000 to provide free rides for the day. Lyft is also getting together with community groups to offer free rides and reduced price rides for Election Day. Lyft says that more than 15 million registered voters didn't vote in 2016 due to transportation issues.
After a contentious few weeks, Brett Kavanaugh is the newest justice on the Supreme Court. InSight's Will Thomas talked with a political expert to find out what Kavanaugh's confirmation process says about the future of the court.
I'm here with John Augenbaugh, who is an assistant professor in the political science department at VCU. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Augenbaugh.
You're welcome.
So we have the Brett Kavanaugh case going on, which has kind of shook the country so far, and you're a political science professor here at VCU. How has this come up in your classes?
It's come up in, I'd say, pretty much all my classes, because I think for many of the students, they don't understand a lot of the dynamics of the process just in general, but they've been, I think, kind of sort of off-put and concerned by the allegations and how elected officials don't seem to be performing or acting all that adult-like. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
I understand that. And what is your personal take on the Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford case?
I think in some ways it's been a culmination of events and phenomenon that have kind of sort of a trend line, if you will, of roughly the last 40 to 50 years. Many of us who study the courts have acknowledged that the selection process for Supreme Court nominees has become much more politicized. I don't think many of us thought it would go this far, but these are serious allegations. And I'm not entirely sure, and many scholars aren't entirely sure, that the United States Senate is equipped to deal with these kind of serious allegations made by Dr. Ford.
Absolutely. Yeah, how much of a role would you believe that politics is in this case?
I think, unfortunately, because neither political party has acted all that honorably in this process, it's pretty difficult to go ahead and say that politics hasn't played a significant role. So even if one wanted to believe Dr. Ford's allegations, the actions of some members, some Democratic senators, provide some doubt. The Republican Party's hands are definitely not clean. The way they've attacked Dr. Ford this week, the way they did not act on President Barack Obama's third nomination to the Supreme Court, District or Appellate Court Judge Merrick Garland. So it's pretty difficult to not look at what's happened and say the process has become probably too politicized, and there's a fear there, because if the selection process becomes politicized, it's very easy then for the public to assume that our federal courts are just as political, because the selection process is, as the United States Congress or the office of the president. And that creates some institutional damage for our federal judiciary.
Yes, sir. And what do you think this nomination process has for is foreshadowing for the future of the Supreme Court?
Well, my optimistic moments, I hope that the both political parties recognize that they need to take a step back and perhaps focus again on perhaps what the Constitution says the selection process should be.
Yes, sir.
In my more cynical moments, I'm really afraid of, if Brett Kavanaugh is not confirmed, what the Republican Party will do the next time a Democratic president has a nomination.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
John Augenbaugh is an assistant professor in the political science department at VCU. Thanks for your time, Dr. Augenbaugh.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
Richmond has approved its first ever public art master plan. The 145-page document lays out a vision for Richmond art over the next decade. It took 3 years to develop the plan, and the City Council gave its final approval in late September. Part of the plan is to establish a public arts commission that will oversee the placement, removal, and relocation of the city's artwork. The city currently owns 44 art pieces, such as memorials, murals, and sculptures. The plan will also support opportunities for art and ongoing public engagement.
Richmond's fastest growing neighborhood has yet picked up another accolade. InSight's Tyler Lane headed to Scott's Addition to see why an increasing number of millennials are calling it home. Good evening, Tyler.
Good evening, Ty. Scott's Addition was ranked the #1 neighborhood in Virginia millennials are moving to the most. Now, I talked to a realtor and residents who say the breweries, food, and fun make it the perfect area for any young adult. Just a few years ago, these streets were lined with vacant warehouses and abandoned lots. Now, a once lifeless Scott's Addition is the #1 millennial hotspot in the state, according to a study by Rent Cafe. And there are lots of reasons residents like Michael Jones are moving here.
Mostly because I love food, and there's a lot of great restaurants around here. The rent's pretty decent, the neighbors are nice.
In the past 5 years, the U.S. Census shows millennial population in the area zip code has increased by more than 43%, and developers have invested millions into local businesses.
I really like the Circuit. That's a new arcade bar. It's the first one in Richmond, which is really cool. Their sliders are really great.
I talked to a real estate agent that told me the #1 thing millennials look for in a neighborhood is walkability. Well, if this was my home, I could get lunch right behind me. I could get my groceries right across the street. And if I wanted a drink later on, well, there are 3 bars the next block over.
I think millennials are getting away from cars and just preferring their area to be just totally at their disposal, and I think Scott's Addition is great with that.
But with every neighborhood comes a few concerns.
I mean, it's a little sketchy, I'd say, but I've never gotten shot.
But it's safe to say that Scott's Addition will only continue to grow, as data shows crime is at a 10-year low and multiple projects are still underway. For VCU InSight, I'm Tyler Lane. And another familiar neighborhood made that same top 10 list. Richmond's West End, the Tuckahoe area, has seen more than a 13% increase in millennial population in recent years.
Tyler Lane reporting from our Richmond newsroom. Thanks, Tyler.
The Richmond City Council recently voted in support of a plan to bring betting machines to Midlothian Turnpike. This Kmart off Midlothian has been abandoned since 2011. Colonial Downs, a horse racing venue based out of New Kent, wants to take over the area and turn it into an off-track horse racing venue. Colonial Downs could potentially bring 700 betting machines to the area. The facility could create 200 jobs and bring in over $1 million tax revenue.
Hurricane Florence may have just brushed the Richmond area, but now it's home to some furry evacuees. As InSight's Analia Spragues reports, they'll be ready soon for homes of their own.
Wendy Alberletta and her family are proud new cat owners.
I'm not really a cat person, but with him it's like a total different thing. It's a different emotion. It's fun.
Alberletta is at the Richmond SPCA just a bit too early to take one of the newcomers who had to find a new home because of Hurricane Florence. Tabitha Treloar is Director of Communications.
We brought into our care 27 animals, both dogs and cats. They had come from the Darlington Humane Society in South Carolina.
And from a shelter that was quickly flooding. The Richmond SPCA is one of countless organizations who stepped up to help out with displaced animals. The new arrivals became some of the 3,600 homeless animals the Richmond SPCA handles every year. Treloar says once those animals made it here, they were given immediate care and isolated.
Some of the dogs are coughing now, and so we are extending their isolation a little bit longer while our medical team gets a handle on their needs.
While the dogs that arrived from Darlington, South Carolina are under the weather, I'm told that the cats that arrive may be ready for sterilization surgery early next week. And Treloar says if they need that surgery, they'll have it right here. About 2 days after that, they'll be up for adoption. And hopefully end up as happy as someone else who has a new home. For VCU InSight, I'm Anaya Spragues.
The Richmond SPCA says that they haven't heard from any other local groups who need to find shelters for animals displaced by Hurricane Florence, but they're happy to help if needed.
It was a neighborhood feud solved with an idea hatched behind bars. InSight's Jacob Sexton has a story on how 2 former prisoners are changing their community, one hoop at a time.
Score, tied at 43. Now, 43-46. But these teams are fighting for more than the W. Jawad Abdul and Paul Taylor met in the Department of Corrections, both serving decade-long sentences. When they got out, they had a common goal in mind.
We want to tackle a civil war that's been going on for 12 years between two neighborhoods.
When Abdul was released, he would knock on the door of the chief of Richmond Police and share the idea. The chief was in full support for RVA League for Safer Streets. It started with 7 teams and plans to double that this year. But basketball is only a part of the deal.
You know, no jump shots without workshops.
The league provides free workshops for its members covering topics like life skills and job certifications. Workshops happen 45 minutes before every game and players must attend. Each workshop has a different theme. This week, however, is only the introduction workshop for the league. Members of the community like Lamar Bullock look forward to what the league provides.
The CDL training and just trying to better forward my life.
A CDL, or a commercial driver's license, is just one of the ways the pregame workshops is helping. And win or lose, the game helped them in other ways.
Basketball was always a good outlet for us to give out our emotions.
For VCU InSight, I'm Jacob Sexton.
The Richmond Police Department had a team in the league last year and are expected to have another one this year. It's just one example of how Richmond PD is looking to connect with the community. InSight's Jacob Sexton sat down with an officer who makes it her mission to bridge the divide between police and the public.
Sergeant Carol Adams heads up the Community Care Unit for the Richmond Police. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, Jacob, nice to be here.
Thank you. And tell me how it is being a community liaison between RPD and the community.
It's awesome. I get to have fun. I get to create my own fun. So I get to go out and to build partnerships and relationships with all of the communities in our city. And the most important rule is to try to bridge a gap, if there's a gap that exists between the community and the police, and to educate the community, because I'm like you probably never been to a police station before, have you?
No.
See, and I call that my house. And the goal for me is to invite everyone into my house so that they can see what it's like without having that, you know, we all think TV teaches us everything that's right, and it's really, really not right. So I like to invite people to my house.
And how it is going out into the community, trying to get other kids and other members engaged.
It's awesome. I'm here. I've been living here in Richmond, Virginia all my life. So going out, and I say to meet my people and to meet the children and all little children like me, to interact with them and to allow them to get to know me. And I call myself Granny Carol. That's what my grandbabies call me. Or Carol when I'm talking to people. You know, I don't need a title. I just need them to know that I'm Carol Adams. I'm a human being and I'm there to help them, you know, in any way possible.
And you've been involved with the community for so long. Can you tell me what has been the biggest change in your community?
Oh, wow. I started with the police department in 1997, and I did forensics crime scene work for a long time, Jacob. And so we would go out to crime scenes, and it would be like 200 people out witnessing, but nobody would talk to the police. They would not communicate at all. And the change has been community policing, our community policing efforts, like with what I do to get out and to build relationships and to let people know that we're just human beings and that it's important that, you know, if they see something, say something. But, you know, we engage the youth with camps. You know, everything that the police department hosts is absolutely free. And to bring people knowledge and not just host meetings so that they can come to the police station or our police academy, but to go out to the community and to host events in their neighborhoods. We do something we call the Faith Leaders Initiative, and that's where we meet with faith leaders once a month, and we bring them in and we talk about crime strategies, but we'll host a community day. So let's say we'll bring social services, we'll bring counselors, clothes, food, anything that we think the community needs. And so we'll just have fun for that day in that specific community. We have our young adult police commissioners that we talked about a little while ago, and that's a program for any high school student from a freshman year to senior year, where they can become a liaison with the police department and come in and interact with us and try to help prepare them for college or for the next step. I'm not trying to encourage them to become the police, but affording the police the opportunity to be mentors to them. We have our Police Athletic League where we do summer programs all year long, Neighborhood Watch, just a lot of different strategies is to help, help enlighten the community as to some of the things that we're doing, because the news spotlight the violent crimes, but they don't really spotlight the other activities that we do.
And I appreciate all your time for talking to me today, and I thank you very much. Sergeant Adams is a member of the Richmond Police since 1997. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's it?
Yeah, I'm gonna
September 29th marked the very first Richmond Dog Festival. InSight's Alex Dougherty visited the event that was held for a good cause.
Pints and Pooches took over the 17th Street Market on this September Saturday. Many Richmonders brought their dogs out for the first ever Richmond Dog Festival. This was anything but a tailgate, with dogs of all shapes and sizes roaming the venue, enjoying the nice weather and receiving plenty of attention. The event was held to benefit the In Richmond Foundation, which accepted donations that would go toward enhancing Richmond Park. Those in attendance, like Ryan Jung and Reed Patterson, brought their canines Charlie and Gracie to enjoy a nice afternoon in the sun.
Well, obviously we love dogs. We have two crazy ones of our own, and they love to make a lot of friends, and we just wanted to get out and see the people in Richmond. It's a fun time. We love the festivals in Richmond, so just wanted to get out and have a fun day.
The festival has adoption services, dog walking businesses, trainers, and homemade treats for the four-legged friends. There's something every dog to get its paws on. And it was a hit for those who didn't show up with a pup like Molly O'Quinn.
No, I don't have a dog myself. I really want one. I've thought about fostering them, but I just don't think I have the time. But then I can come to things like this and see all the dogs and not have one.
The celebration of barks and beer will hopefully continue next year, as it's clear to see that Richmond cares so much about their dogs.
They just love you no matter what you do, forever, and I think it's just amazing. And they're super loyal and are great companions.
For VCU InSight, I'm Alex Dougherty.
And the next event at the 17th Street Market is the Brunswick Stew Festival on October 27th. And that does it for the edition of VCU InSight.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under VCU InSight. Let us know about any stories you'd like to see on our show.
And if you missed our show or would like to watch it again, you can find us at YouTube on VCU InSight. Thanks for watching. I'm Tai Wong.
And I'm Precious Banks. We'll see you next time.